Hey, welcome to the Ruckus Podcast, where we talk about becoming a person of influence and how to impact the world around you and how to impact the culture and how to help others find God, discover their purpose, and become people of influence as well. Today, we're going to talk about transition and how do you handle transition in life. And I don't mean, the times where you've been doing the same thing for a while and you make the decision, I want to switch it up or I want to try something new. I'm talking about the moments where life forces you into transition. The moments where you've spent years putting all these ducks in a row, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a giant rock just comes and knocks all your ducks out of line, and you're left with the decision to make about who you are and where you're going to go. This can be anything from a job, right? Maybe you have a dream career, a dream job you've been working towards, and you feel like you're about to get the promotion, and then out of nowhere, your boss comes and says, sorry, man, you're laid off. Or even worse, your boss says, you're fired, right? That's no fun, getting fired. Or maybe the company shuts down, right? Or maybe you had a dream of a business that you're trying to start that failed. Maybe you were in a relationship that you thought would last forever, and out of nowhere, it just ends. And you were left with, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with this person. That's no fun. Or maybe you have a family relationship where something happens, or maybe just in life, something comes and just kind of knocks you off of your feet. And all of a sudden you realize, I cannot keep doing the same thing I've been doing. Okay. What do you do in those moments? You see, in human nature, we kind of tend to respond to those types of moments often as a crisis, right? When we lose our jobs, we tend to get discouraged. We tend to get depressed. We might turn to some things that we shouldn't turn to self-medicate. You see this all the time in the political world, right? People who are really into politics, and if their leaders or their kind of policies that they want to get passed don't pass, man, you see people lose their minds and go into panic mode and crisis mode. In human nature, we tend to not really respond well to moments of change and moments of crisis. But I want to share some lessons with you that have really helped me in my journey, lessons that I've learned from reading the Bible, lessons that I've learned from people who are much wiser than me in my life that I've learned a lot from, my pastors, my leaders, mentors, people that I've looked up to, books that I've read. And I'd like to share some principles that have really helped me navigate some of life's transitions, and I think might help you, especially if you're in a moment right now where you're really having to make a decision about your life and about your future. I think some of these points might be really helpful for you. And the first thing that you need to understand where you're going through a time of transition is, number one, is you got to know who you are, and you got to know the cause within you. You have to know who you are, and you have to know the cause within you. See, the thing is when you get knocked on your feet, right, when a circumstance or some obstacle or something comes up that just completely rattles your cages, right, and shakes your world and shakes your belief in the dream or the vision that you have for your life, it's easy to start getting discouraged and to even feel disappointed at times, right? Using the job analogy that we talked about earlier, maybe you had a dream career and a dream job, and all of a sudden you get laid off and you think, oh shoot, I might not ever be that kind of person in my career, right? You find this a lot in ministry, right? You sign up to be a leader and you want to help, minister to people and help people find God, and you want to be there to encourage people and to build people up. And then something happens that shakes your faith, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know if this is really what God had for me. You see, the thing about times of transition and crisis is it changes your situation, but it doesn't change who you are if you don't let it. It doesn't change your cause. It doesn't change the God-given cause that's within your heart and the mission and the vision that you have for your life. Right? The truth is that even if you get knocked on your feet like that, right? Even if you experience a road bump, or a boulder in the road, the mission is still there. Right? The cause is still there. And guess what? Knowing that cause and knowing who you are is going to help point you in the direction you have to go. Because when you have to pivot, a lot of times you don't know what direction to take. I talk to a lot of people who are like, man, especially this is common when you're graduating school, right? Especially when you're graduating college. Ooh, what do I do with my life? I don't know if I should move to this city or that city. I don't know if I should take this job or that job. I don't know what I should do. What does God want me to do? And a lot of times you just got to know who you are and you got to know your cause. And a lot of times that cause will help navigate you towards the direction you want to go. Maybe it won't paint 100% clear the path you're meant to take, but it'll at least keep you pointed in the right direction. You know, a lot of times God will give you the decision, right? Am I meant to go to this city or am I meant to go to this city? A lot of times God will say, well, what's the cause within your heart? What cause did I put within your heart? Now, a lot of times God will close doors, which is good. God will open doors and God will close doors. But sometimes you get to choose, right? God gives you a choice. Imagine that. And, you know, in these moments of transition, when you know who you are and you know the cause that God has put within you, it directs you towards making decisions and taking roads that are going to take you closer to fulfilling your purpose and towards fulfilling the cause that God has put within your heart to serve others and to help others and to make the world a better place. So number one, when you face times of transition, don't panic. Just think and remember who you are. Remember what you're about. Number two, when you're experiencing a time of transition, don't quit, right? You can pause if you need to. You can take a breath. You can recalibrate, but don't quit, right? Pivot if you have to. Most times in life, you will have to pivot. Pivoting is not a bad thing. Pivoting just means like, look, I was on this lane, right? Heading in this direction. This lane all of a sudden no longer works. I need to switch lanes. I need to move over to figure out how to get to my destination. There's nothing wrong with pivoting, right? When you're going towards your vision, when you're going towards, you know, whatever it is you're dreamed of, when you're trying to accomplish the dreams in your heart or you're trying to do what God has called you to do, you're going to have to pivot at times. You know, not everything is going to work out great the first time you try it. As a matter of fact, I would probably argue that most things you try the first time probably don't work out exactly the way you want them to the first time. But over time you learn. Over time you adapt. Over time you course correct, right? And so when these moments of crisis or these moments of transition happen, you know, don't quit. Don't ever experience a transition and think like, oh my gosh, that means that, you know, I'm not an influential person. I tried to influence, you know, I tried to be a leader in this place and it didn't work. Okay, I guess I'm not a leader then. No. That's not the lesson to take from that. The lesson is, okay, what leadership lesson do I take away from this? Okay, what's my next avenue? What's my next step in terms of becoming the person that God's called me to be? Okay, but don't quit. You can pivot, but don't quit. And number three, don't get caught up in the past. Do not get caught up in the past. What do I mean by that? You see, the reason why a lot of us, we experience crisis in moments of transition or when we're faced with a decision that we've never been faced with before, the truth is all we know is all we know, right? And everything we know is based off of our experience or things that we've learned in the past. But you're going to find that when you start to really try to become the person that God's called you to become and you start chasing after the dreams or the goals that are in your heart, you're going to come to points in your life and you're going to come to points where you're going to have to pivot and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do. I have never experienced this before. Right? And that doesn't mean, you know, it's funny. I hear a lot of people in this moment say like, man, I wish I would have known this before. You know, maybe you tried to launch a business and it failed. You're like, man, I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have known this. Or, you know, as a leader in a ministry or an organization, you're like, man, I wish I would have known this. And you feel like you failed. You know, or maybe you made a career move that didn't quite work out. You're like, man, I wish I would have known this sooner. I wish I would have known this ahead of time. The truth is we only know what we know. And it's actually a good thing, if I could maybe offer a different perspective. Sometimes it's a good thing you don't know, because a lot of times we're meant to learn things. See, sometimes the things that we don't know because we've never experienced them, but we're intended to learn them, right? You learn a lot in pivots. You learn a lot in these moments of transition. You learn a lot in these moments where you're starting to kind of put your ducks back in a row. There's a lot of things from your past that maybe didn't work out and didn't add up, but you were just working with what you knew back then. But now you're learning new things that are going to help you build closer and help you build further towards your future. So don't get caught up on the past. If you're like, man, I feel like my job was working out for 5 years, and then after year 6, man, something just happened and crashed. I don't know what happened. Good. You got something to learn. You have new information to get. You have new things that God wants to show you and teach you. You know, and as you go through the journey of transition and continuing in your purpose, you're going to learn new things that are going to make you a stronger person, that are going to give you even clearer vision about your life and about who you are and how you want to serve God and how you want to serve others. So, in these moments of transition, number one, remember who you are. Right? Remember the cause within your heart. Number two, don't quit on who you are. Don't quit on that vision that God's put in your heart. Yes, constantly think about it and constantly calibrate and constantly make sure that, yes, this is who I am and this is my cause. And, tweak what you have to tweak, but don't quit on who you are and don't quit on the vision that God's given you for your life. If you feel like God has called you to be a leader for him, do whatever it takes to become a leader for him. Figure out what it takes. If God's put it on your heart to be a great husband or a great wife or a great mother or a great father, and you feel like you're failing at that, don't quit. Just recalibrate and just start asking and praying or seeking advice from other people. Okay, how can I become a better person in my family to help lead my family and serve my family more? Right? Don't quit on the vision just because you feel like you failed in the moment. Okay, and don't dwell on the past. Do not dwell on the past. You knew what you knew, and you're going to learn what you're going to learn. Transition. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget the cause within you. Don't quit. If you got to pause and take a break, do it. If you got to pivot, but don't quit. And don't get hung up on the past. Don't get hung up on what you know or what you thought you knew or how you thought things should work out. I hope that was helpful. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube. We got the show up there. Please make sure you subscribe, like. It will really help us a lot. Until then, we'll see you soon.